My name is Lisbeth.
My name is Katie, and today we're going to teach you how to do recrystallization with both a known and an unknown solvent. Recrystallization is used to purify a solid compound. It involves dissolving a compound in hot solvent and then allowing it to cool and recrystallize so that it can be separated from most impurities.
For this procedure, here are the materials you're going to need. A hot plate, a beaker for your hot water bath, your solvents, 50 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask, disposable pipettes, a scoopula, your compound, test tubes, and an ice bath.
If the solvent for your compound is unknown, you will need to test several different solvents to find the one that will work for recrystallization of your compound. A good solvent will dissolve your compound when hot, but not when cool. To determine the solvent that you will use, start by placing a very small amount of your compound into a test tube. Then add some room temperature solvent and swirl. In our experiment, the solvents we will be testing on our compound are water, hexane, and methanol.
If it is observed that your compound dissolves in the room temperature solvent, then the solvent should not be used for recrystallization of your compound. Keep trying different solvents until you find the one that does not dissolve your compound. Sometimes you may need to use a mixed solvent. Some common solvents to use are water, methanol, ethanol, acetic acid, and petroleum ether.
Once a solvent is found that does not dissolve the compound at room temperature, the test tubes should be placed into a hot water bath to slowly heat the solvent. If your compound is dissolved while heating the solvent, then this is a suitable solvent to perform recrystallization of your compound. As you can see, our compound dissolved fully in hexane. So, we will be using hexane to recrystallize our compound.
For the most part, the recrystallization will be the same for the known and the unknown solvent. If your solvent is known, just skip the first part of finding your solvent and use your known solvent for the recrystallization. The only difference will be determining how much solvent to use.
Great! Now that you've found your solvent, or have already had your known solvent, you can begin the recrystallization procedure.
If you have a known solvent in a known volume per gram of compound, then use the mass of your compound to determine how much of your solvent you will need. Make sure to use extra to ensure that your compound remains dissolved during your heating process. Now start by heating your solvent in an Erlenmeyer flask on the hot plate. Heat till boiling or until you see condensation beginning to build up along the walls of the flask.
While your solvent is heating, place all of your compound into a separate Erlenmeyer flask and add a boiling stone. For the next step, it's very important that the solvent stays hot so that your compound doesn't begin to crystallize before you can complete recrystallization.
With both flasks on the hot plate, carefully add some of the boiling solvent to the compound to dissolve it. If you are working with a known solvent, go ahead and add all of your hot solvent. If you had an unknown solvent, keep in mind that it's important that you only add the smallest amount needed, plus a little extra, to dissolve all of your compound. So add a little at a time until your compound dissolves fully, and then add a little more to ensure that your compound remains dissolved. Continue heating and occasionally swirl to help dissolve your solid.
Once dissolved, begin cooling the solution to room temperature. While the solution is cooling, crystals should begin to form at the bottom of the beaker. Once it is cooled to room temperature, place the flask into an ice bath to continue cooling until you see no more crystals are forming. Also, it's important to know that the slower the cooling process, the purer your resulting crystals will be, so be patient.
When you start to notice that there are no more crystals forming in your solution, the crystals can be separated from the solution via vacuum filtration. The solution can also be referred to as the mother liquor. Use some of your chilled solvent to wash the mother liquor off of the crystals, then place your compound on a weighed watch glass. Don't forget to remove the boiling stones, and let your compound dry for at least 24 hours before weighing it.
Now you know how to recrystallize from a known and an unknown solvent. Good luck recrystallizing your compounds! Go get 'em, Rattlers!
We're O-chem students. Of course we phone on item the day before the exam.
I'm an O-chem professor. Of course I expect you to know how to recrystallize.
We're O-chem students. Of course you know how to recrystallize.